Troy, introduce yourself to us.
Okay. My name's Troy Mcconnell, and I have founded a couple of companies. Some have been successful and some have not. The most recent was a media company focused on the U.S. Hispanic market, primarily reached them via online. The company was called Batanga. It started in 1999 and sold it to a private equity group in 2007. Just my background is really I'm not that kid that was like selling lemonade, making a bunch of money. I'm just a regular guy. In fact, I was kind of a slacker in college. I got my undergraduate degree in math, but for the most part, when I got out of college, I really didn't go to work right away. I did a bunch of different things that were more driven by fun than they were. So I've kind of fallen into this. It's not something that I was born to do, I don't think. I think it's just something I've learned over time.
What would you consider the biggest reward? What was the most satisfying part of that? And is?
Yeah, you know, what I'll say is the biggest reward on a number of the companies that I've started is that they're still in business, they're still providing value, and they're still employing people. Because at the end of the day, I mean, I have a tremendous amount of respect for the employees, and they're really the ones who do most of the work, right? They're the ones who you've got to motivate to do the actual execution of the ideas and the work. But I think that what I'm really interested in doing is creating long-term established value.
You did Batanga. How did you know that that was something that had that need that you talk about?
I didn't. And I don't think you really do. Even now, the things that I'm doing, what I'm constantly doing is testing. I have a specific goal in mind. With Batanga, the idea was first, frankly, our focus was let's reach Latinos with music online. That was the basic idea. And the first question was, well, will anybody listen to music online? And this is in 1998, 1999. And so the first thing was, let's get some music online and let's make people aware of it and let's see if they actually listen. We grew pretty quickly. We got to 50 and 100,000 uniques listening to the music within a couple of months. And so, okay, that means we have a value proposition for consumers that works. They are interested in listening to music that they can't find anywhere else. This does satisfy a need for them. That's good. The next question was, well, how do we make money? And the idea was to sell advertising. We actually had a million ideas about making money, but the only one that worked was advertising. And so we went out and pitched advertisers. And until we actually got the first ad campaign, it was AT&T Wireless, in the middle of 2000, where we actually had a customer paying us for music, paying us to reach the audience, did I really understand that there was something here that was going to work. Up until then, it was, I believe, but then I had real consumers, I had real advertisers, I had real money where I was making on a marginal basis. Now it becomes an issue of how you scale that. How do you get more listeners? How do you get more revenue? How do you get more customers? So until the company was almost a year old, I wasn't even really sure, really deep down sure that the thing was going to work. It seemed like it was a really good idea and I believed in it, but until I had paying customers and consumers listening, I wasn't sure.
What happened to your employees from Batanga?
Yeah, well, a lot of them, we bought a company in Miami and moved the headquarters to Miami, so a lot of them moved to Miami. Those who didn't want to move to Miami have moved on to something else. So. And
if I remember correctly, at least one of them has started their own business.
In fact, I think 5 of them have. You've heard it, judge the success that you've had by what you've had to give up to get it. And certainly, there's 2 ways to look at that. One is the obvious way, which is to say, in order to be successful, you have to sacrifice. You've got to work hard, you have to give up, time. There's a lot of things you have to give up in order to be successful, and I think that's true, and I think that's good advice. But I think this flip side to that success statement is you also have to think about what you really had to give up. Did you give up things that you truly value? Like, have you given up all the time with your family? Have you given up all the time with your friends? Have you given up other things that you enjoy doing? Now, that's okay if that's how you're going to define the success, but if you get to a position and you've given up whole parts of your life that you regret doing, then I don't know that that's success. And so my point about that is, I think it's a matter of how people define what they want. I don't really believe you're going to make a ton of money if you work, part-time in order to control your life. But I think defining success as controlling your life and having a lifestyle is an perfectly acceptable mechanism to be an entrepreneur and to be and to define your success. So that's why I think that I also think that doing work, which is doing something that's a startup business, which is incremental to your existing knowledge, is important to you being successful. It's an important indicator of you being successful. So if you have a background in human resources, say for example, and you go into consulting on the human resources side or a service on the human resources side, then I think you're more likely to be successful than if you move into something where you have no knowledge at all. But it goes back to, like I said, I think it's really important to define for yourself what it means to be successful. I have actually written a business plan. But
what was that like?
Well, let me just I don't know if this is a funny story or not, but at the end of my second company, I started going to night school to get an MBA. And the first class, like the first or second class I took, right, I was supposed to go and take the accounting classes and do those. I took a couple of accounting classes, I take it back, because I actually like accounting. I think it's important to know the mechanics. But the very first like elective class I took was entrepreneurship. And so I went in and the guy who was teaching the class put all the slides up front on the web, and I downloaded them and was reading the slides, and like the very first, one of the very first slides was, if you wanted to start a business, you might not actually be sitting in the class, you might actually be doing it. I mean, it was teaching the process of entrepreneurship, which I thought was important, but one of the first slides made kind of a comment about, it wasn't pointed, but it was something like, if you really want to start a business, you wouldn't be in here, you'd be, doing that. And it wasn't a knock, it was really interesting. And it was funny because I read it and I'm like, that's really what I should be doing. That's really what I should be doing. So I actually wrote, I still sat in the class, I still took the class, wrote the plan, and used that professor as the feedback for the initial plan. And of course he blew it full of holes and did all that. So I did actually write a business plan for Batanga originally. It was all wrong. It was completely unrealistic in terms of its projections. You look back at it now, I think the most important thing is that the basics of sales forecast, marketing plan, operational plan, I didn't always write it out as thoroughly as I did the first time, but I always did that. I mean, sales forecast and sales process, I did that quarterly. Marketing plan, I did that twice a year. Operational plan, operational review, in response to that, I did that probably twice a year or once a year. Now, usually I did that as we grew. I did that with, the core team, and then as we grew even further, they actually did that for me. I didn't actually do it anymore. I asked them, you have to build this. But is there a planning process that we continually went through? The answer is yes. Now, was it always written out in 20 pages or 40 pages? No. Sometimes it was in 2 or 3 slides. But we knew exactly what we were trying to achieve, because I think it's hard to, I don't know how you tell the salespeople what they're expected to do unless you have some forecast against which you can measure them. I don't know how you can know what the marketing program is supposed to do unless you've set out the objectives of what you're trying to do and the tactics of how you're going to do it. So I don't know how you measure whether you're successful against that plan or not unless you actually write out the plan. Mm-hmm. Now, again, was it paragraphs and paragraphs of text? That's just not my nature. So I think for certain people it is their nature, and it probably comes very easily. For me, it wasn't. For me, it was mostly about outlining, bulleting, put it together in 3 or 4 pages. Not because I think that's the right way, it's the right way for me.